matter?
Nothing. We just stiffed a couple of kids.
Ah, how much you take them for?
$20.
You laughing about $20? Let's go to the movies.
You're allowed to talk, film, discuss, critique.
I do it because I love it.
You aren't exactly the sort of a person you pretend to be, are you?
It's important that we get together on this thing.
I love you.
Who got the picture?
It was May 1992, an election year for Dan Quayle and George Bush. Riots had devastated parts of Los Angeles, and the conservative politicians were at it again. Quayle attacked Murphy Brown, a sitcom television reporter, because the fictional character chose to have a baby and raise it by herself. We all laughed as we watched the very real Vice President of the United States criticize the child-rearing techniques of a fictitious anchor woman. Quayle had mixed up the real world with the media world. Welcome to Scanning the Movies, a show for anyone who wants to take a closer look at the role the movies play in our lives and the way in which the media world of movies intersects with our real world. Of course, this now famous Dan Quayle-Murphy Brown confrontation is not unique. Many also remember that extraordinary evening of October the 31st, 1938, when listeners, turning on their radios, thought the Earth was being invaded by aliens. A degree of fear and panic ensued, and some people never did realize they were listening to the great Orson Welles radio play, War of the Worlds. But what if, in some strange fashion, Dan Quayle was right? That the world of the media and the real world were one. And what if our real world is not the real world at all, but simply the appearance of reality? Yes, I know this is starting to sound like an episode of The X-Files, but this is the premise of The Matrix. So how do we tell appearance from reality? How do we know whether something is real or not? And what is real? These are the questions the character Neo asks about his life. Played by Keanu Reeves, Neo has the suspicion that his life is being controlled by someone or something. Then, one day, a beautiful stranger named Trinity leads him on a search to find the truth behind the illusion. Enter Lawrence Fishburne as Morpheus, a stranger who will lead Neo out of his dream back into the terrifying and brutal world that is The Matrix. The Matrix is a complex story which takes place in the future. Though the setting is a distant time, its urban look and feel isn't completely unfamiliar to us. In fact, it's just familiar enough for us to identify with and believe in. The Matrix is also told in the present. It begins with the premise that every single thing we believe in today, and every single physical item now around us, has actually been fabricated and is the result of an electronic reality. Maybe Neo is right. Reality is only appearance. And if he is right, then the X-Files are wrong, and the truth is most definitely not out there. Though it may sound complex, there are several key themes we can explore as a way of analyzing this movie and the way in which appearance and reality are truly interwoven. It's a theme which has fascinated writers and audiences as long as stories have been told. At one end of the spectrum is Alice in Wonderland, a striking example of a story in which reality and fantasy are inextricably entwined. At the other, Shakespeare. Every one of his dramas plays with the differences between appearance and reality and our perception of who people really are. A master of toying with an audience's assumptions based on what they perceive, Shakespeare questions their perceptions, turning them upside down before ultimately revealing deeper levels of meaning. The Matrix is similar. Watch this clip as Neo sees his reality fracture. Another theme obvious in the movie is that of a quest, a theme that has been part of our storytelling tradition from ancient Greek mythology to Star Wars, from Lord of the Rings to Catcher in the Rye. Characters have gone on quests that have changed their lives. In such a quest, even the names of the characters can be metaphors. In The Matrix, the main character is called Neo, a Greek word meaning new.
I'm searching for the answer to a question. The question is, what is the Matrix? My character feels that the answer to this question will somehow make sense of his life, for I'm playing someone who is alienated from the world around him. He's suspicious of the world around him.
Carrie-Anne Moss plays Trinity, a girl whose name calls to mind not only religious imagery, but also images of destruction, as one of the first atomic bombs was called Trinity.
I believe that if you open yourself up and if you walk a path of truth, that everything will be revealed to you. I always thought of her as a guide and a protector to Thomas Anderson, Neo, on his journey. And also, of course, carries a lot of love along the way.
In every quest, there are various common story elements, such as adventure and romance. In The Matrix, Neo and Trinity fall in love, and as star-crossed lovers, search for reality. As in any life-altering quest, the hero is in need of a guide. Luke Skywalker had his Obi-Wan Kenobi, and here Neo has Morpheus, played by Lawrence Fishburne. Morpheus is a sage whose wisdom is essential to Neo's quest for truth. Morpheus is Greek for sleep, a state in which reality and fantasy often come together.
My character is called Morpheus, and Morpheus is a person who lives in the real world. He's a free person, and he's the leader of this band of people that move in and out of the Matrix, if you will, looking for the one.
The three characters, Neo, Trinity, and Morpheus, are on a quest to find the reality that underlies the apparent world in which they live. And what they seek may sound very familiar to you, especially if you watch The X-Files. Trinity says the answer is out there. It's the question that drives us all, as it also drives the story's quest, a quest that will remind you of everything from Alice in Wonderland to The Wizard of Oz.
You have the look of a man who accepts what he sees because he is expecting to wake up.
For directors Larry and Andy Wachowski, the task with such a film was to perfectly blend the various worlds of the film with the dominant themes of the story, to make a coherent whole of many disparate elements. In this case, the underlying theme concerns computers and their evolution into artificial intelligence and how this could impact on humanity. What is the myth about AI? Is that going to be the mythology that people are looking at 100 years from now?
Well, I think basically every culture needs to sort of re-examine myth and archetypes and sort of apply them to sort of modern social, political, and technological realities that sort of create the issues of that culture and time. And I think myth is a great way. It almost begins this dialogue for all cultures, the re-examination of these true archetypes.
Well, I just wanted to find someone who was, I didn't want to make him robotic, but at the same time, I didn't want him to be entirely human. So I was just a matter of kind of finding the right area for for him, really, because he's a sentient program. He's a computer program who's actually evolving. So there's a human element to him. He's starting to feel things. So it's just finding that right voice. I was thinking about like a newsreader or someone like that, who was a human being, but at the same time in a slightly unreal world.
Human beings are a disease, a cancer of this planet. You are a plague, and we are the cure.
Ironically, a film that comments on the potential overpowering of the world by technology could only exist in the form it does through the use of the very technology in question. Most science fiction films depend heavily on the visual effects used to create the appearance of their film world realities. Some of us watched the visual effects in Star Wars with awe and have gone on to be truly amazed by the computer-generated dinosaurs in Jurassic Park. Ideally, it should be impossible for us to distinguish between what is real from what only appears to be real. Remember, the crowds on the sinking Titanic were largely computer-generated. A lot of work goes into making such effects appear seamless, and it takes a highly talented visual effects team like the people working with Bob Monroe at Toronto's Core Digital Pictures to make this happen.
Visual effects are typically effects that are added later, where we bring in, now in the digital realm, we bring in the film, get it scanned in by a film scanner, turns it into digital frames, and on a frame-by-frame basis, we work by adding something to that footage that's already been shot.
I think that in any use of technology, I mean, there's ways of using it that is more or less standard, and then there's ways of using it in an innovative, different fashion. I mean, in most of the digitizing that we've seen, except for the unusual examples, it's essentially either changing backgrounds or putting in a CG character or things that, you know, you really are logical and just using the computer to composite the images. What Larry and Andy did is they've used the computer to do things that no one ever thought of before.
Matrix is a movie filled with visual effects. Let's look at two examples and then listen as Bob Monroe explains how they are done.
There's a technique called dead time, and it's a number of lenses on this track, and the film runs through this system and captures 40 images all at one time, all at one moment in time. But they're from different places spatially, so then you take those 40 and then you play them back sequentially, one right after the other, and it looks like the camera is moving through the space, but the action is frozen in time because the images were all captured at the exact same moment.
That's what you need. Guns. Lots of guns.
Out of that background on these racks, more than likely that was a small model. And what they would have done was shot the model with a motion control camera, moved in on it, then moved the rack one further step over, shot it again, or let's say they had 5 or 6 racks. They would move them in sections and then shoot it again with a motion control camera, so they're all, when they're played back, moving at the exact same rate, the exact same time. Now, because the two characters are locked in the middle of the screen, when they finally composite this all together in the computer, what you get is the effect of not a camera moving towards these racks, but the racks moving towards the camera.
Part of Neo's training involves learning new skills via computer download. Watch the excitement that the visual effects make possible as Neo tries his new kung fu skills. Of course, when we go to a movie, we know it's a movie. We know the appearance is not the reality. And now we know a little more about how these appearances are achieved. Does that spoil the illusion? I don't think so. Ideally, visual effects are seamless and more or less invisible. That is to say, the more real they are, the better they are. What it does do is affect what the poet T.S. Eliot called a willing suspension of disbelief. Our willingness to be seduced by and to believe in what is on the screen. In the end, the more complex and stimulating a movie's visuals, the more the audience has to respond to. If it looks real and feels real, then as far as we're concerned, the experience of the movie is real. Which is all that really matters, isn't it? Or is it? For more information about The Matrix, please check out the study guides on the Bravo and the Cable in the Classroom websites. For Scanning the Movies, I'm John Pungenti. Thanks for watching.
Sales.